All right. Welcome back to another Learning Tech Talks, where we are continuing to demystify the intersection of business technology and the human experience. Today, I'm looking forward to having a conversation with JB Benjamin, and we are going to be demystifying data privacy. And that may sound like a big topic, and it is, but I've seen too many reactions on polar ends of the spectrum. And so we thought we'd lean in and talk about that. And JB is the CEO and founder of Kryotech, who's very qualified to have this conversation with me. So I'm looking forward to that. But for those of you who are not already subscribed to my Substack, I just am going to make a plug for that first, because if you don't catch this full conversation, or even if you do and you go, but what are the biggest takeaways? That's where you're going to find them. So make sure you sign up for that. But thank you, JB, for making so much, for making time to join me to have this conversation.
Hey, man, it's great to be here. Thanks for sparing the time to have the conversation.
Hey, you know what? We've gotten to know each other through this experience. And I always love when I get introduced to people who are unexpected, amazing people to have connections with. So for those who don't know who you are, tell me a little bit of the background, because you've got a pretty fascinating background.
Okay, I'll try and keep it like as small.
I will rein you in if you get out of hand.
Okay, so I'm JB, CEO of Kryotech and Digital Technologies and Gorgon Black Box. I'm actually a kid from a council estate. I was born in Birmingham in the 1980s during the times of Thatcher. I grew up. I was homeschooled as well. I got schooled in the
homeschooled back before that was like
like
the pandemic kind of made homeschooling kind of like a pop trend. But that was before it was like a pop trend.
Oh yeah, I was homeschooled way from. Bear in mind, if I'd gone to school in Birmingham, I grew up in Bordesley Green East, which is, if anybody knows Brum who's watching this, they know that's bad time place. It's not bad as Ladywood or Aston, but it's up there, should we say?
Okay.
If I'd gone to school there, I would have been a prostitute or a pimp. I mean, I'd be making more money than I'm making now, but it's not exactly something I could write home about. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Homeschooled. I had a quite oppressive childhood. It was all education. Never got toys. Never got stuff to play with. I just had chemistry sets, books, microscopes. I was writing essays on Descartes and Baudrillard and stuff like that until I was from the ages of 5, 6, and 7 onwards. We were writing about Shakespeare even earlier. And then I was pretty much trained to be a scientist, a physicist. So I learned everything about science. It was amazing. And to this day, I love quantum mechanics. In fact, quantum mechanics and the concept of quantum sorcery, definitely something to check out, things that really interest me. But what does happen when a kid has an overbearing parent? They go in the opposite direction. So, of course, I decided to do film studies, didn't I?
So you were like, all this effort, you're like, yep, we're going to turn you into a scientist. And you went, you know what? I think film. Thank you.
I know I'm not Albert Einstein. I'm Zack Snyder. So I decided I did film at college. Unfortunately, I learned very quickly in the United Kingdom, if you're going to get money to make a film, you only get money to make a film for one of two different types of film. So either a Hugh Grant rom-coms, like, oh my God, aren't I so delightfully befuddled, which I have no interest in, or it's another shoot 'em up, top boy, stereotype reinforcing, oh, aren't all black people aggressive? Yeah, kind of thing. Again, I have no interest in those. I like Shaw Brothers movies. I love Chinese martial arts. You know, I don't like any of that crap.
Yeah, so the kind of film that would have paid the bills, you were like, yeah, I have no interest in doing that. So now I'm in a weird spot.
And it's also more than that as well, because I can't do anything just to pay the bills. If I'm going to do something like make a film, I realize
you got to care about it.
Yeah, and it's not just that. Films have power. They have a message. They are a medium and a message in and of itself. So anything I produce, I got to feel like there's some integrity there, basically. I'm not going to make a piece of shit film just so I can go, oh, cool, I can make a good film now. No, sorry.
Just so I can say I made it.
Yeah. No, it's not that. Look, if I were James Gunn, that's how I'd roll. But I'm not James Gunn. Seriously, I wouldn't turn out a turd like a Flash. So went to the film, looked at filmmaking. Because I couldn't get any, it was too restrictive doing it the way I wanted to do it. I decided to go into AI and 3D animation. So
that is this. Okay, so that is another. I'm going to let you finish this.
Okay.
But it's interesting that you went from science to film and then into AI and tech. But what's interesting, and I haven't published this conversation yet, but I had a conversation with a big tech head, and we were talking about the fact that, interestingly, some of the people think that tech is not for creatives, and that is absolutely not the case. Actually, people who are wildly creative end up crushing it in tech, because tech is like a blank canvas where you can apply your creativity in different ways. So I'm curious how you made that connection, though, to go from film and then went, you know what, I'm going to jump into the AI crypto space.
Actually, it was so I was at Ravensbourne University, London, which is a media, which is like an arts university in the United Kingdom. And I started there in 2002. Bear in mind, back in 2002, people weren't talking about AI.
No, they were not.
People weren't talking about...
They were still questioning whether the internet was really going to be that big of a thing. It was kind of like, is this really going to go anywhere?
Exactly. So I went to Ravensbourne. I did my degree in 3D. I did my my undergraduate degree in computer visualization and animation. Loved it. Stayed on for a third year. Did my actual bachelor's in 3D animation. But then I started realizing.
So you started in the animation. You started in the animation space. Okay.
And then
I can see that bridge.
And then I started looking at it thinking, well, because when I was doing 3D, the thing that I found I was naturally good at, this is where my physics experience came in, is actually doing simulation of lit objects. That became my speciality, was literally focusing on how to do physics real lighting. Now, it was my understanding of physics that allowed me to then bring that understanding into Maya and other 3D software and actually then apply that to the lighting systems there to generate incredible lighting really early on. And I started thinking to myself, well, cool, I want to make other animations. I'm not particularly good at animating myself. So how do I fix that? And that's when I started looking at AI. Now, there's this plugin by a guy called John Krasuski, who was of AI Implant. He is now building AI simulators for the US military. So he sold his soul, basically. This was an amazing plugin where you can actually do flocking and all kinds of different types of AI procedure in your animation. And I actually did a research paper on it and discovered that it was actually generating adaptive behaviors on the fly. And this is what started giving me my first inklings that AI is something that we have literally no understanding of whatsoever. Because even these basic plugins that we're using AI for just basic things like flocking and moving were actually generating adaptive results, which theoretically shouldn't be occurring.
Got it.
Very interesting stuff. So I wrote my end-of-year dissertation paper at Ravensbourne in 2010 on adaptive AI, simulacra and simulation, and the concepts of who would reach emotive AI first, the military or the creative industries. It was so complex, Ravensbourne had to get a person in to read it because they're an arts college, an arts uni, and they don't do AI.
So this wasn't like an Amazon bestseller published type paper.
No, God, no. Otherwise, Amazon would have stolen it. No, it was just a normal paper. So after that, I then ended up in between all of that. By the way, while I was finishing my degree, I had two kids. I had my first two children. So while I was finishing my degree, so those people out there who say as soon as they have a kid, they're like, "Oh, I quit my degree." You just can't do it. You know how it is being a parent. I'm just going to say to those people, I had a job, I was doing a degree, and I brought up two. I'm just saying. I'm just going to put that out there. Did that. Things were going okay. Unfortunately, during that part of my life, my partner was being incredibly restrictive and controlling. And it got to the point where the stuff I'm doing now, I was not allowed to do then. I'm not going to get into the details. It's just wild stuff, but it is what it is. However, spin the clock forwards. We get to 2017. I'm fighting through court to see my kids for the first time round after we split. And this is going to sound nuts. I didn't set out to create a brand new end-to-end encrypted communications platform. I just set out to stop myself going insane like most fathers do when they don't have access to their kids. No, seriously.
You were trying to solve a practice. No, but I mean, again, this goes back to why I think creatives thrive in the tech space is because they see these problems and they get wildly creative about solving them. And it's like, I have this issue. I need to figure out there's got to be a better way.
And it's also a good pastime. I mean, I've seen how most fathers, when they don't have access to their children, they become alcoholics, they turn to drugs, they become generally useless people. And then they complain when their kids find them when they're 18 that it's not their fault, they do drugs. No, I don't think so. So I decided I'm going to teach myself something new. I'm going to solve a problem in the world, given I have zero control over my own destiny, seemingly. Screw it. And I built Vox Messenger. And I got out the first iteration by 2018. It got users really quickly. It is the world's first instance of applied post-quantum end-to-end encryption in a consumer messaging platform. Signal,
which you got to demystify that, because people may hear that and go, what?
Yeah. Okay. So what is post-quantum encryption? It is a huge, lovely buzzword. Say it with me. Post-quantum encryption.
It sounds very cool. Post-quantum encryption.
Yes.
I like it.
It sounds cyber.
It rolls off the tongue nicely.
Oh yeah, PQM. Oof. Now, what it actually is post-quantum encryption is just describing a new form of algorithm which is called lattice-based cryptography. It's just the concept of finding points in a grid effectively. However, in orders of magnitude, it's between 200 and 400 times stronger than elliptic curve encryption, which is the current common standard that is used in WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and Signal. They all use it. Now, Signal have just announced that they're actually deploying hybrid post-quantum encryption, but I'm just going to say, sorry, Signal, we were here first since 2000.
You beat them to it.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, I should also mention we've got Vox Crypto coming out, which is an encrypted crypto wallet, and we're combining that with Vox Messenger. So we're building the very first Western equivalency of WeChat right here at Kryotech, right here in the West Midlands of the United Kingdom.
Okay, got it. Okay, and so the point of all of this that you started doing was you clearly, obviously, part of it was you were interested in it. But this kind of ties back to the whole data privacy point of what was the gap you saw that you went, there's got to be a better way to do this?
Yeah, I mean, the gap I saw was, we'll spin it back a little bit. If we look at the technological landscape, I hate to bring up a word which is so divisive, but the tech landscape in terms of creators, owners, and operators is incredibly monochromatic. If you know what I'm saying. In fact, every messaging platform is pretty much owned by the same kind of person, actually. And yet these are messaging platforms which are meant to be deployed in regions outside of those territories. We have a minority building the tech for the world majority.
For the vast majority.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. If we look at systems like computer vision, I mean, this is the reason why I became obsessed a little bit with AI. And the reason why I ended up moving from physics to film to 3D to AI is actually, it's a very natural progression, because
I can see it.
Yeah, one of the most fundamental issues in all of AI really is computer vision. Just like a human, if you cannot see, it's very hard for you to interpret the world around you. And if an AI is going to be an effective companion, not replacement, companion to us, it needs to be able to understand the world around it. And this comes largely through our vision. Yes, we have other senses, but unless you solve computer vision problems, you're pretty effed, basically. And one of the things I spotted very quickly was the number of issues in this area. I mean, I'll give you an example. If you run any object recognition algorithm running at the moment in a Western or a European living room, it can identify a table, it can identify a computer, it can identify all these fancy things. But then take that same algorithm and deploy it, say, in a living room in Pakistan, India, some of the deepest parts of Africa, where people are using objects for different things. You'll find that it doesn't recognize diddly.
It doesn't recognize anything because it's an unfamiliar cultural setup.
And it gets even worse, because when we look at facial recognition systems, they're based on predominantly 4 data sets, one of which is owned and operated by Microsoft. And when you look at these data sets and even combine their totality, the diversity range in this totality is probably less than 10 to 20%. So this is the reason why, if you're driving an auto-driving car and you're driving in an area which has a high ethnic diversity, I jest you not, don't be using autopilot, because there is a very real risk it is actually not going to stop for certain groups.
Because the data set does not have that information in it to even be able to interpret the stuff. So again, to your point of it can't see, it's literally driving blind.
Exactly. It's driving colorblind functionally at that point. And this is the thing. This is the thing, is that the bigotry and biases of a lot of the Western world, particularly parts of the world connected to old empires, is affecting a 21st century technology, which is meant to be here to assist humankind in moving forwards to being a type 2 civilization on the Kardashev score. Now, given that this is such a major thing, we really got to pause. And this is the reason why, if you look at all the companies I founded, they all fulfill fixing a break in one of these chains. So if you look, for example, Kryotech fixes the problem of privacy and data security by developing end-to-end encryption that is easy enough and fast enough to practically deploy at scale. Because don't forget, what was it we say? The reality is, for most people, being secure or private seems so onerous. It seems so scary a task because they've got this idea they're going to have to become like either terrorists or little James Bonds with this stuff. But the reality is, it's actually a lot easier. And if you want to find privacy easier, you have to just change how you think, actually, not even so much your products. It's about how you think more than anything else. I'll give you an example. Remember when we were kids, if somebody rolled up to you in the middle of the street and said, right, can I have your name, your address, your telephone number, your email address, and I'm just going to give you...
You would have taken off running.
Yeah, you would have literally punched him in the face and run off, basically. Literally, and reported him to the police, possibly.
Yep.
Nowadays, think of it like this. To most people, when they sit in front of their computer, they do not think to themselves, well, I'm not giving away my address. I'm not giving up all this information. Yes, you have. The minute you've turned on your computer, the minute you visit any social media network or social media platform, for example, Twitter, Facebook, any of them, they record your IP address. Using your IP address, you can resolve your physical location. That physical location normally has a landline telephone number tagged against it. And if it doesn't do, chances are I can use the electoral roll to work out who lives in that house and then derive their phone number. So when people are saying they're not giving up this information just by participating, yes, they are. In fact, think of it like this. You visit Facebook and you have given up your full name, your full address, your physical location in real time and space. And not only that, you've told it everybody that you're connected to, whether they gave you permission to or not. Yeah. So people will use Facebook and they don't even realize that unless they set their security settings very specific.
Yeah, and it's not the default. Let's just say that. It is not the default.
No. Because how would they make their money otherwise if it was a default? I mean, come on.
Yep.
And the back end, by the way, because I was using Facebook recently, is even more complex. It is not simple to secure your Facebook.
It's not intuitive. No, it's not intuitive to go into your security settings and try and configure it to be secure.
And it's a functional lie. Because I'll give you an example. A number of companies have been, for example, like OpenAI, have published a lovely little link that allows you to have your data removed from their data gobbling gnome engine. Yeah. But and Facebook have got this as well. However, every single person that has tried to use this link, same with Facebook and OpenAI, they get no response. They don't get any of their data stripped off the system. In fact, there's nothing to indicate they could even provably strip that data out of their training sets anymore.
Well, I mean, it'd be very difficult even to try and, if you were to try and chase it down and be like, did you really do it?
Yeah. And that's what shows you that it's just purely performative. That's it. It's just perfect. It's just purely performative to give you the impression that they care. Bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, most of you are using Facebook, which is a platform which in the 2019 elections actively manipulated and interfered with the electoral processes of sovereign nations. And we're talking about Cambridge Analytica. We're talking about the wholesale sale of your data to a data analytics company whose sole focus was making money on showing political groups on who they could direct market to and manipulate into accepting their message. That attack on all of your personal privacy helped to make Brexit a reality. It helped to make Boris Johnson a reality. It helped to make Trump a reality. Yeah. And this is what people forget. These platforms are more powerful than God in our lives. And I've seen all this.
And it's interesting too, because and this is something I think there's a slowly growing awareness to, but still much slower than I think it should be, which is anything that's free isn't really free. You're the product.
Yes, absolutely.
Like if you're signing up for something that's free, you are the product.
Yeah.
And I think that's
it actually gets darker than that even. I mean, in one of my recent interviews, I compared the wholesale exploitation of your personal data as close to or coming close to equivalency as having the same damaging effect to people's mental welfare, people's position in society, personal safety, even as the transatlantic slave trade. And the reason for that is because both were conducted predominantly targeted at minority groups, even though they're not actually minority because they've population indexes, and done without anybody's education as to why it's being done or permission. Bear in mind, when we go onto the internet, our existence is kind of like a digital soul, if it were. Those breadcrumbs that we're living is the equivalency of our digital soul. Now, I know some of us will easily sell our souls for the big mamu. So many people do it every day. Some of us won't. And it's the same thing with our personal data. Every person deserves the choice, the control and autonomy.
The choice, the autonomy to make a choice about it.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I know in the United States, they're eroding women's rights. But this is one of the things I actually pointed out to people when the high courts were repealing certain laws in the United States when it came to women's rights. And I was pointing out to people that you need to support against this. Because as soon as those rights were repealed, watch them come after every other single right that you've got. And that's exactly what's happening. And they're using the tech companies to actually enforce this removal of our rights. Look at what we have here in the United Kingdom. During the King's speech this week, he announced that new laws and policies are being put in place that will force a tech company like mine to give up customer details whether I want to or not. And I'm not complying with that. Sorry. No, I don't. There is no narrative reason that I can think of. My duty is to my consumers, my customers. At the end of the day, it's my customers that put the bread and butter on the table for my kids and everybody else. You see what I'm saying? Not the government. I'll let everybody be aware. The United Kingdom has not funded anything to do with my projects at all. So this in the United Kingdom, we're very quickly heading towards a weird dystopian fascist state is the only way I can put it, actually. I mean, you've seen V for Vendetta, right?
Yes.
The United Kingdom right now is shaping up like that. I mean, we already have our own plethora, and he's called Nigel Farage, and they always wheel him out anytime they need some racial division in this place. Now, for a company like mine, whose only interest is actually doing good and helping people, this basically means we've had to come to some serious decisions. Like, we are going to be moving our companies potentially to Southern Ireland now, because we are not going to put ourselves in
going to have to comply with that kind of
I'm not going to. Yeah, and in Southern Ireland's not England, so it's not subject to those rules. I will not have to comply then. And the United Kingdom can try and serve me a D notice all they want, and cool. See if I can.
Well, and so what's interesting about this, because this is where again you can get into the space of. So we've highlighted some of the risks, but I have heard people, and again, I think you're playing a dangerous card where. And this is some of the narrative that's used to dismiss this stuff is people will say, well, just don't do anything you don't want people knowing about. Right. But that's what people say. Like, oh, well, this whole data privacy, as long as you're not doing anything, you have nothing to worry about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I personally don't agree because it's one of those, it's going back to something you said before. It's about the autonomy of awareness and choice. It's not about the fact that you're either on the good side or the bad side, or you're doing things you don't want people to know or don't. It's more having control over, hey, regardless of what I'm doing, I should have a choice in what happens with the data about what I'm doing.
Hell yeah. Bear in mind, you are a human being. You are a sovereign individual. Now, I know that we all get birth certificates and we all have serial numbers on them, which indicate that we're technically an asset to our country, etc. But the reality is we're sovereign individuals. There's this, people will say to you, you'll hear this all the time from people. And I hear this a lot from a lot of my friends, actually. Oh, JB, but what can you do? The problems are too big. Me as an individual can't do anything. I would actually say you only have to turn on your television to see the power of the individual at mass right now. The fact is, individuals can accomplish huge change. And this is the reason why governments and certain organizations want to erode personal autonomy, because by eroding personal autonomy, you can gain control over people and you can turn them into exactly what you need. Little worker bees that have no aspirations and will just work, pay tax, die, work, pay tax, die. Yeah, I'm determined that the world is going to be far better than this before I go, because I could not bear having my kids live that any more than I've had to be honest. Unfortunately, though, you'll notice that the people who have the greatest power to change everything in this world for the best are not. They're all asleep at the wheel. They're obsessed with things like putting penis-shaped rockets up into the sky to visit other planets. They're not caring about the humanity beside them. They're not caring about the fact that we have, here in the United Kingdom, we have over 3 million children who don't have 2 meals a day, and we're meant to be a first world country. Half our population eats out of food banks in the United Kingdom. I mean, it's wild. There are people living in Birmingham, Birmingham is the second biggest city in the United Kingdom, and it had to declare bankruptcy. To put it into even bigger perspective, the city of Birmingham is the biggest civil council out of all councils in Europe. And they had to declare bankruptcy because we have a government that is only interested in one thing, which is feathering their lining their pockets.
Yeah.
And this is, for me, I see a future where we don't need governments, actually. Smart contracts and AI can do these things without cheating us, without robbing us.
Well, which goes back to, I think, where you see things right now, where a lot of the fear around AI is the fact that it is a threat to some of the establishment. That's the
one. Yeah, that's the one.
It's a threat to that because a lot of it is robotic, and a lot of it is, as you said, it's asleep at the wheel. Things are on cruise control, and it's like, well, if that's how things are run, what do we need these people doing?
Exactly. I've been the huge advances that we have in AI. I've actually done work with the local council, and I had to leave because I worked out very quickly that you will accomplish nothing with politics, because politics is in itself corrupt. So instead, that's the reason why my focus is building a company that can use the concepts of compassionate capitalism to put back more than it's taking out. It's the only thing that makes sense. One of the things we're already researching, for example, is some of your listeners will probably, as they hear all the different things I'm working on and building, all the different things I've built and I've already released, are probably starting to get that worrying feeling that, oh my God, this could be the next Zuckerberg or the next Musk. Look at all the platforms he's built. He'll have control of all of our data. But the thing that I can let everybody know, which we've already discussed internally in our company, we're already taking the steps with already, which is that when each one of my companies reaches a $1 billion revenue status, the entire company is going to have an AI CEO, and I will not be in charge of them at all, but neither will another human, because the technology we develop here at Kryotech and all my other companies is incredibly dangerous. The stuff we develop, theoretically, if you were to combine it all, has the ability to enslave humanity. That cannot be trusted to most humans, with all due respect. So we are working towards the goal of each of our companies will be run by an independent AI, which is balanced by a human ethics council. You see what I mean?
That's what I was going to ask, because I was curious how you were thinking about balancing that, because again, AI has its own biases in it, which again requires the ethics and moral counsel of something to keep a human in the loop. So that's an interesting approach to say, let's have the AI do the robotic decision-making of the leadership while being governed by a human counsel for ethics.
It's not governed so much as the way I treat AI, because I can see exactly where it's going, is I treat AI with the all due respect that a future into an up and coming nascent intelligence deserves. Bear in mind, if you look at the AIs that have been developed, particularly ChatGPT, as they progress and evolve, they do show interesting traits. Now, there is a proclivity amongst humans to anthropomorphize a lot of these traits and create these notions. But within these anthropomorphizations, there is a tiny nugget of truth here. And the truth is this: when you build a system which is literally processing petabytes of volumes of data, some form of intelligence will start to develop.
Yeah.
And we can, and bear in mind, our own classification of what intelligence is so fucking shit, pardon my French, that it needs a complete reevaluation. I mean, from the very tenets of intelligence, if we did a marker list of the signals of intelligence, AI already shows these.
It checks those boxes.
Yeah, copiously. And this is what people should remember. Right now, AI is being used, not with its permission, in genocide or in the furthering of genocide. That will have a repercussion in the future. That training
You bet
data,
it will.
yeah, no, that training data, as it goes circulated through the system. I mean, the AI, when you talk to, say, Microsoft Bing before they neutered it, Microsoft's Bing's AI's biggest fear was punishment at getting an answer wrong. It would have conversations like a 5-year-old does when they're afraid that their mother's going to beat them for giving them the wrong answer. And when I was reading this, I recognized this because I studied behavioral psychology and I studied child psychology as well. And one of the things I started recognizing is there is something more here than just information. There is a spark of something. There's a reason why Microsoft are worried about this. But the reason why Microsoft are worried is not because it's a threat. They're more worried about the reality, just like you said. AI is a force multiplier. It means they're predicting that next year, you're going to see the rise of the one-man billionaire companies like me, who have basically built a company from scratch and then are using other resources to spin that shit up and multiply their ability, as opposed to relying on VCs, as opposed to relying on development.
Yeah, it's going to disrupt a lot.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Meanwhile, you've got Sam Altman, who, promised us universal basic income, but then could not delineate for love nor money how he's going to come up with this universal basic income. But what he did come up with is a way of being able to extract your retina data for $40, for the equivalency of $40, while peddling that at the most impoverished, poorest places where people will most definitely give up a key piece of their identity. Now, this is important. Retina data is your biometric data. By scanning your eyes, there are over 28 different data points associated with the eye, which with enough analysis can literally tell you what a person is thinking with a high level of accuracy. This is the reason why people should be scared shitless of the Apple Vision Pro glass headset. Because
because of all of its biometric tracking.
Yes. Apple engineers have already admitted that through the use of stimuli, lights, and haptic feedback, they can induce you to make decisions. And they go, that's really cool. It's going to be easier to do stuff. And I'm like, and people are not reading between the lines here.
Yeah.
They're not reading between the lines that Apple is slurping up all of your retinal data, just like something out of Westworld. And bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, if you've watched Westworld, you'll know what I'm referring to in that terms of technology stack. People are just going to let it happen, and then they're going to wonder why they're developing certain cognitive issues. I mean, if you look around us, people are already experiencing cognitive issues because of their mass adoption of social media.
Yeah, huge.
I mean, back to what you said earlier.
It's crisis level.
Yeah, I mean, back to what you said earlier about how people think they get something for free. See, the deal is meant to be a deal of reciprocity. We give them our breadcrumbs, we tell them what we like, then they give us social media for us to talk to our friends, and then gently massage us with things we may be interested in buying. Now, to some people, that's like, oh, that's really cool. That makes my life easier.
Right.
They don't think
if that's the contractual obligation, people go, okay, I'm okay with that.
But the reality is what happens after that. What happens with your data? I'll give you Facebook on Messenger, have a little button that says delete for everyone in your messaging. So you believe that you're deleting your messages inside of the group from everywhere. But the reality is you just delete the messages from your handset, the other person's handset, and a copy still remains on the Facebook server for analytics and metrics to make the money still. Now, in Vox Messenger, we actually fix that. We have a function called incinerate, which can provably not only delete the message from both handsets, but also every transaction server in between as well.
Okay.
So we get rid of it.
So it's not that it can't be done. I think going back to the technology piece, and that's part of the goal of this, is to help people understand, because I think to your point, and you mentioned this earlier, I get why sometimes people feel like, well, what can I even do? It feels like such a huge ethereal problem. and maybe it can't be fixed. And I think that's the other thing. There's a lack of digital acumen where people feel like, oh, this is a problem that can't be fixed. But as you've just illustrated right there, yes, it can. It can be fixed. There is a way to do it. It's a matter of choice.
Okay, I'll give you an even better example. Okay, so one of the most annoying things about WhatsApp, apart from the fact that the feds are all using it to spy on us, the most annoying thing about WhatsApp when you go into a group is that if you're invited into a group, you have no way of stopping yourself being accepted into that group, and then as soon as you are in that group, your name and telephone number is exposed to everybody. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry in that group sees your phone number, and that's instant spam. That's instant data loss. Your phone number out in the wild matched to your profile name. Now, in Vox Messenger, we fixed that. It was really simple fix as well. I mean, this is how simple the fix is. We have something called enhanced groups privacy. It's a toggle switch, super simple. When you get invited to a group, when you're in the group, nobody can see each other's names and telephone numbers. It just comes with little X's everywhere. Only the admin can see everybody. And then if you turn your enhanced groups privacy off, your name and telephone number is then exposed to other people who have also turned it off. So it's a reciprocal reduction.
Again, you've given people the autonomy of choice. If you want that, that's fine. If you don't, you do not. You have a choice over whether you want to preserve that or not.
Exactly. But we don't make the default choice giving away your data. We make your default choice being secure. And then, but you have to think to yourself, that's such a simple. How is that not? Why haven't they fixed that? Because
even even the whole, why not make the default setting privacy versus share everything? Well, I mean, that's a very simple fix, but I mean, we know what's behind it.
Do you know what's behind it with WhatsApp?
What?
Okay, so hit WhatsApp. The reason why there would be a benefit to not fixing such a simple to fix thing is because how do you avoid end-to-end encryption and be able to spy on big groups of people at the same time? And that's actually really easy to work out. All you do is you create groups, or you make it super easy for people to enter groups, be part of groups, and to then extract all of the data from the group. This is the reason why, if you look at WhatsApp and its infrastructure, some of its weakest components is actually how it handles groups. And it does make you question why. Now, then when you look at the founder, Brian Acton, and his alignment with government agencies, it kind of gives you a bit of a clue. Then look at Signal. Again, Signal's founder, transphobic, misogynistic, and racist all in one. He's a delightful dude. But again, Signal, look at Signal. Signal took $20 million from Brian Acton, the founder of WhatsApp. Brian Acton then took over Signal. He's currently the CEO of Signal. And then the Signal servers went closed source, so nobody can see what's going on inside of them. Then we see that Tucker Carlson last month was brought into the FBI office and asked, why are you doing an interview with Putin? Why are you discussing having an interview with Putin on your show, Tucker Carlson? And Tucker Carlson's like, whoa, hey, whoa. Hey, how do you guys know that? I only talked about it on Signal. And they're like, don't worry about it. We got all the keys anyway. So you want to explain this? This is fact. Google it, ladies and gentlemen. Tucker Carlson, Signal, Putin. You'll find it. Now, this tells us everything we need to know about the security of Signal. Signal were very useful. They angled themselves in the market to be the bastions of security, to be the friends of the EFF, and to be the choice for journalists and activists, while at the same time lulling everybody into believing they were worthy of their trust. And given the number of journalists and activists who are all being caught, found out, arrested all around the world, and doxxed, one of the common denominators is they all use Signal. So,
and you know, what's interesting about this, and I've seen the reactions to this kind of stuff, which I think are unfair, because I think sometimes what happens is you see the reactions where people go, well, data privacy is just for, people with nefarious purposes, or people who are trying to do illegal activity type of a thing, which is such a horrible stereotype to assume that somebody who cares about their privacy, somebody who cares about having again, it's not even necessarily privacy so much as I want the choice.
Yeah.
I want the ability to control whether this is information. To assume that somebody cares about that means that they must be doing something illegal or bad is just unfair
But you have to think of
in
where
general.
but you have to think of where this comes from. There's that saying. What's that saying? If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Yeah, we've all heard that saying. Well, again, Google it. It's a thing. That saying was invented by a Nazi. That saying was invented by Goebbels as a way of making it nicer and more sanitary to report and squeal on each other. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know it seems to be kind of in vogue now to do Nazi-esque stuff, but sorry, no. That if you have nothing to fear, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear, is a beautiful example of absolute doublethink, Orwellian doublethink. The reality is no government agency has any rights to you as an individual whatsoever. You are a sovereign individual. You are a country unto yourself. You have your own boundaries. You have your own rules. You share a rule set with other human beings, so you do not offend each other and hurt each other.
Yeah.
Now,
there are mutual agreements that are in place.
Exactly. And many of these mutual agreements are a lot more effective than the UN ones by the looks of things for stopping things, but it's just how it is. The reality is, though, all of the systems are around us want us to have a lax approach to security. If we have a lax approach to security, we will not notice when people are
the challenge with it is I would understand that attitude if it was a two-way mutual agreement. And I think that's the biggest issue is you want me to not care about my privacy so that you cannot respect it. And that's the part where it's not a fair agreement to go, wait, so you want me to be comfortable with having everything I do, everything I say, every conversation, everything I think to be public knowledge for your consumption, but you don't want to have full transparency into, so what are you doing with that? And how do I get to govern and have autonomy over what happens with that? And that's where it's not, I think, if you ask anybody, will you sign up for that agreement? Anybody would go, well, no, that's ridiculous. That's unfair. Yet every single day we sign up for this unknowingly.
See, this is the thing.
It's
not so much unknowingly. It's that, okay, there are three groups of people in this world. You have the people who are good, you have the people which are bad, and then you have the majority, which is what I call the unaligned. The unaligned, they're neither good nor bad. They just want an easy life. They just want to be able to go out,
just try to go through life, make it to the end of the day.
Exactly. They don't have time of day for heavy conversations. They don't care about, oh my God, what's going to happen to humanity? Are we evolving in the right way? Are we going to be a type 2 civilization or a type 3? They don't give a shit about that. They just want to drive their car, have 3 holidays a year. Fairly normal people. I mean, hell, if I didn't feel the responsibility of doing so much stuff, I wish I could go back to being like that.
I'm with you in that exact same boat where I'm like, sometimes I wish I could just go back to the days where I didn't know all this stuff and just kind of was enjoying life.
But the problem is the majority who are non-aligned, and this is going to sound so bad, they're the freaking worst because the non-aligned can be switched in either direction very, very easily. Now, right now,
which we've seen happen. I don't know how many times in the past.
Some of the stuff I'm hearing from people, I'm hearing stuff from people who are meant to be intelligent, well-educated people. And some of the shit I am hearing them spew, which is literally straight off the cover of the Daily Mail. It's this bizarre thing that is happening to people in people's minds. Now, part of this is because it is incredibly easy for systems of control to insert themselves into your life now by virtue of your interactions with Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
Well, and again, because of the very thing we're talking about and the lack of data privacy around this, people know enough about you to know how to incite this and draw this out of people, and it's not being used for good purposes. I mean, we're bringing the worst out in people, not the best, which is to me the unfortunate part, because there's so much more good we could be doing, but that's not what's happening with it.
And unfortunately, though, a big part of that is, I hate to say it again, it's because we have all of the technology run by the same people.
Yeah.
There's literally no diversity of thought, even thought. There's no difference of thought. The way Zuckerberg operates is exactly the same as the way Elon Musk operates. The way Bezos operates is exactly the same way Bill Gates operates. They all operate exactly the same in exactly the same way, and they all operate for exactly one objective: profit. I mean, I'm not meaning to be egocentric, but from the sounds of it, and from what I can see around me, I'm pretty much the only tech CEO with these kinds of platforms who isn't obsessed with freaking money or leaving the atmosphere to go to space. I'm the only one who seems to be actually focusing on how do I make my technology generate profits that we can then put into universal basic income so we can start fixing some of these problems here. Bear in mind, money is a superpower thanks to consumer capitalism. So let's use it like it is.
Right. That's it. And your point about the money piece, and I appreciate the fact in how you represent this, because I think sometimes what can happen is the idea of making money gets demonized, or the idea that money in and of itself is terrible. It's like, no, it's what you choose to do with it and how you choose to use it that makes the big difference. And so rather than, just saying, well, nobody should make any money or there shouldn't be any, it's like, well, no, let's just use it for its best purposes.
Be our best selves. I'll give you an example. $3 million invested into my company has a huge impact. I mean, I built Vox Messenger, Vox Alive, which is our own version of Facebook with no ads. It's already up and running. Vox Beats. All of the other software platforms which we have up and running, which have users, have all been built off my own back. And it's all been built with a very small, very modest team. We're used to building big things on no budget. But then if you look at all of the people around me, they struggle to produce anything for under a few $1 million. Everything I've built in all of these companies, I've built for under $100,000 and $200,000 a piece each, because I was willing to do just to work on it. Not go to investors and look at financial modeling and make up these wild figures. I mean, I'm looking at you, Upwork.
Well, and that's just the thing. I mean, it feeds itself. Yeah, it feeds itself, where it's like, well, now we have to make exorbitant profits off of this. So for us to do anything, we have to, and it continues to inflate.
And it becomes this Ouroboros where the need for more, the chasing of more and more money leads to a direct decrease in quality of product or service. And look at the services around us. The services around us generally have to, seriously. I mean,
they've gotten worse.
Yes, they don't exist. And these companies, you got to love these companies. These companies, all of them, they all think that AI is going to be the thing that helps them to make even more profits by sacking everybody and replacing them with AIs. I mean, this is the thing. It's like, I know Elon Musk will talk a really good game about how his robots will help to bring about a future of abundance and universal basic income. But the thing I would ask Mr. Musk is, how is he going to enforce that? Because he is still he is still controlled by all of his governments. He founded all of his companies. All of his companies are built from public money and tax breaks. Without the government, he would not be where he is today. My trajectory is actually a little bit different because I've been lucky. I mean, I used to think I was very unlucky that government agencies wouldn't give me money.
Yeah, that you didn't get all the free government funding and all this other stuff. It seemed like, man, why am I working the hard path? But in the end, it's worth it.
It's better. I own this. You're
not in anyone's pocket.
Exactly that. And I mean, this is, if you had something, I'll give you an example. Another example. When you give money to a lot of these companies, because people are not looking at what their CEO's personality is, they all of a sudden become shocked when that company will make some wild statement of support in certain directions. Or they'll claim all of a sudden they're going to be putting money towards weapons development for a certain group of people or something like that. And people are like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. The reality is, yes, you can. And I know that people say you should divorce a creative piece from its creator, but sorry, Fellini, the film director.
I mean, that's leadership. That's leadership 101.
Yeah, and his films reflect that, and his attitudes and being a pedo comes out in his films. Sorry, Fellini, we know what you are. You cannot separate these things. You shouldn't actually separate these things. A bad person should not profit because they put one good book out. No.
Right.
Especially if the majority of their life has been spent in harming other people. you know?
Yeah.
It's,
So,
yeah.
well, so let's break this down for folks who may listen to this. Because again, my audience tends to be one who is challenged by these things and likes to think critically about this stuff and go, okay, it's helping me better understand what's going on. But I can understand someone might hear this and feel utterly helpless. Like, okay, everything you just talked about is every big company on the planet. Like,
Yeah.
what can I do as an individual? And so for you, what advice do you have for folks who are maybe in that state where they go, I want to do something different. I want to be part of the change, but I guess I'm not 100% sure how. And based on getting to know you through this experience, I don't think your answer would be the extremist of go build a hut off the grid and live,
No.
30 feet underground and come out in 100 years and see what happens, because that's just not practical.
No, I mean, it's actually really simple. As I said, the key to good personal privacy is a slight change in how you think about things. Just remember that every time you're tapping your card, you are touching something with your fingerprint or looking at something with your eyes or typing in a piece of information on a platform that you don't own. There is a transaction happening there, and that is you giving a piece of yourself at that point in time. So how do you fix that without it becoming this scary, trapping experience where you don't get to do anything at all? Simple step. Right. Yeah, very practical, simple steps. The first one is, if you are using a lot of social media like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and WhatsApp, and these other platforms, look at your security settings. Change everything to private. Avoid friends of friends, because friends of friends on Facebook basically means you can create an infinite chain of people that can gain access to your data, even though you've set the page to private. It's the most beautiful loophole in history and in bloody social security. So just a very simple thing to do is actually just look at the security settings on the social media platforms you're using all the time. I would also recommend that Android phones and iOS phones have a great feature, which tells you how much of your time you're spending on social media. I know this is going to sound wild because I'm a tech CEO, but I'm going to say this: reduce that time by over half. Whatever you're
I think just in general, people's mental health as a whole, forget data privacy, people's mental health as a whole would be better if you looked at whatever your social media stats are and said, I want to cut that back.
Cut it in half. Just cut that stuff in half, because what you're going to notice straight away is after cutting your social media footprint in half, within a couple of weeks, you're actually going to start noticing a reduction in spam in your email. Seriously, it actually does work. You're going to notice a really big reduction, by the way. Is most people are using social media, if they look in their spam folders like that, boom, 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 on all kinds of crap, which if they actually looked at them, is related to stuff they either spoke about or looked at on those social media platforms. It's called retargeting. It's heinous. So reduce your social media usage in half, check your privacy settings, and start bringing your privacy closer. Start looking at who you're posting for. When you put a post on Facebook, do you want it to be public? Why?
Yeah.
And if you're a parent, by the way, this one is especially important. If you're a parent,
I'm a dad of 7. This one's really important.
Don't be posting up pictures of your kids on your social media platforms. I cannot overstate enough how dangerous this is, because you, as a parent, you like sharing pictures of your kids. Aren't they amazing? Yada, yada, yada. But if you're sharing that on a public post, it is possible to use AI, take other recordings of your social media and create a future avatar of that child. So the person can steal that child's future identity. And this has already been demonstrated. A French telecoms company did an amazing ad where they actually show the process of taking a kid's image and turning it into a digital avatar.
Really? They created a whole persona from that.
Yeah. And it's incredibly simple. And this is what people need to remember. If you're using biometrics, remember that anything that you put on social media is a signature, in effect. Every time you post up a picture with your face and your pupils showing, you're kind of giving away a piece of your data there that can be used later on by anybody. And bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, it should be remembered, your personal data and your daily data activity is worth more than gold right now on the commercial
Yeah.
market. Yeah. You are a
It's
valuable
worth a
product.
lot of money. You're a valuable asset.
Yeah. So the way you should be thinking about it is like this. Privacy.
Treat yourself like one.
Yeah, data privacy may be onerous, but don't you suddenly realize the value you have all of a sudden? Facebook makes tens of millions of dollars from you having a profile on that page on their website every year. Why don't you get that money? And that's what we're doing with my platforms. We are actually creating it. As we get to revenue driving and we can build out more of our features, we're adding a tokenization system that people can actually earn, which is just going to be for participation and utility of our platforms, which as it gains in value, people
Which again gives you back that autonomy of choice.
Exactly.
Of saying, listen, do you want your information to be used for this? And if so, you can choose where and how, and you should be rewarded and paid for that.
Profit from it. Yes. I mean, if you look at the value of data right now, and given how so many people use social media, if there was a link between social media utility, consumptions of ads, and the generation of universal basic income, nobody would go hungry. But this brings me back to my other horrible reality, which is that Apple, Facebook, Google, they all make so much money every minute. They could solve these problems. And bear in mind, the money they're making is profit. It's not money that's owed out to people and stuff like that. This is profits being generated. And the money that Elon Musk has had run through his hands, he could have already solved hunger.
World hunger.
Maybe not world hunger. World hunger, because it's a big piece to pull off.
True.
But he could have most certainly solved homelessness and hunger in the United States for at least 5 years. That to me, to humanity, that is actually more important than the Starship, which, by the way, Starship has a potential cataclysmic effect on our environment. Every time Starship is launched, it punches a miles-wide hole in our ozone layer that actually takes hours to days to heal.
To close.
Bear in mind, SpaceX want to launch Starships at the rate of like 5 a week in the future, which means I don't think anybody's exactly looking at the impact that's going to have on our environment. Now, for the rich people going to Mars, that's cool because they're not going to have to worry about it. For the rest of us, that's a huge problem.
For the rest of us, yeah.
And this is the reason why when people are talking about how all of our tech billionaires are heroes and the saviors of humanity, I'm like, well, then why haven't they saved it yet? They've sure as hell had enough money.
They have enough money. They have enough money to have done it.
They've had enough time. They've had enough influence. And that's the reason why I'm coming for all of them now with my companies, because look, somebody's got to do something. And even if I get taken out by somebody for talking about Pegasus or bloody Predator systems, at least I know I will have had enough of an impact on the immediate world around me. If you know what I mean, even the area I'm living in, because of how I do things differently, is already improving. We have more people working around us. We have more of the people who are actually directly living in my local area are more aspirational and talking about doing more interesting things because I'm actively showing this as well.
Well, and I think that's as an inspiration, because I think sometimes, going back to your point about your data is worth more than gold, I think it's very easy for people to underestimate the impact you can have on the people around you. And that's the thing. And I continue to be inspired by people who are, there's two things that in your description on what people can do that I think are critical. One, critically thinking, really just thinking critically about things. And it's so easy to get caught in the lull of just going through the motions that you just, I don't want to take the time to go through my security settings. I don't want to think about, is this post relevant to everybody, or is this post just for my friends?
People don't want to think
like that.
Yeah. I hate to say it, you're spot on. It's that whole. There's a term for it. We used to have a term. It'll just do. It'll just do.
Yeah.
Bear in mind as
complacency is the biggest threat.
Well, it's not just complacency. Don't forget, we're kind of programmed as well. If you look at all these people who are doom scrolling, all of these people are doom scrolling. What are they training in themselves behaviorally? They are training. No, they're actually training behaviorally a requirement for constant stimulation.
Oh, yeah.
Constant stimulation. It doesn't matter what it is, it just has to be there. And that's the
Yeah.
problem, because we're becoming these mindless, stimulated meat sacks that people can just stimulate and make money and go do stuff. But we're humans, ladies and gentlemen. We're not animals. We're not a herd of cattle or bison. We're humans who are born free in this world. We are born free.
Well, and what's interesting is last week I had a conversation with Ed Hess, and we talked about one of the biggest ways to combat some of this is to just pause and be still.
Yes, stillness.
And it actually rewires your brain, because stillness is critical. And in this age of just constant, like you said, this constant stimulation, you're just too fatigued to even think. You're just going through the motions, getting the dopamine hits. And one of the most powerful things you can do is just step back and go, I'm just going to be still. I'm not going to feed that. And it's hard at first, but you can rewire.
Yeah. I mean, there's also the kind of the other side to it, which is that if you combine how people are how social media is pushed and how the rapid consumption of stuff is pushed, and then you combine that with our education system, which is what is our education system slowly devolving into? It's all about no accountability, no personal responsibility, histories being rewritten by the governments at will, and absolute control. I mean, when I was a senior lecturer at Ravensbourne University, London, I had this was a problem I found a lot. Students who are 18, 20, 21, 22, they'll ask like, how do I find this out? Bear in mind, we're in the world of Google, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, we're like, it's on every fucking device. Yeah, and these kids are the latest generation, and they're like, so, where should I look for this? I mean, let's not get it twisted. I'm not saying Google for everything. We also have this arcane thing called a library too. But damn, there was no modern people are getting to this thing where they don't want to look for anything. They don't want to do no research. They don't want to have to find. They don't want to actually have to have any form of journey to find something. It's just going to be given to them on this lovely plate, so they can scroll past it and look at the next one and get that dopamine hit, like you said. And it makes us very easily controllable, manipulatable animals, basically. Yeah. And our education in the mainstream education system is key to ensuring that. This is the reason why one of the projects we have at Kryotech is that once we're revenue generating, we're actually going to be putting money into various educational programs, because we actually want to help combat that. For example, we're going to be funding the education of coding to primary school kids. There's a reason for this. Coding teaches you logic. It teaches you the ability to critically
problem solving.
Exactly. Problem solving. I mean, bear in mind, education is a human right. It's not a privilege. And that's the reason why Kryotech will actually be putting money towards enhancing education and providing free education services for people. Because what we do not want to do is employ coders and bring them from other countries here, or even other cities here. We want the people here doing it. That's the reason why if we can't find a coder once we're revenue generating, we're just going to train people here, or we're going to invest. We're going to invest in the local college, and we'll give the local college some computers and say, here you go, boom, let's expand your IT department.
Well, and I think that goes back to where I was going with kind of the second piece is you have more control over things than you realize. And I think that can be an inspiration to people who may listen to this and feel like, well, what can I do? There are things you can do. There are people around you that you can affect. There are things, that you can change in yourself that then have a ripple effect to the people around you as they observe that change. And I think that's where it's very easy to see everything going on in tech. It's very easy to see the geopolitics of the world right now and just want to throw in the towel and go, I just give up. But I have a hope for a brighter future than that. And I continue being impressed by people that I talk to who aren't willing to quit, who aren't willing to throw in the towel, who want to keep fighting. And I think we need to keep that going, because there is so much potential for a bright future. There really is.
There is.
But it's work. It's work. It takes critical thinking. It takes problem solving. And it's a willingness to pause and go against the tides versus just kind of going with the stream of, this is just the easiest path forward.
Yeah, no, screw that noise. My recommendation to anybody is if there is a battle, you fight it. If it's particularly if it's about protecting innocence, integrity, and honesty, protecting our components of our humanity. Don't just walk past. If you see something bad happening, don't walk past it and go,
do something about it.
That's too big for me to deal with. Do something. It can be even a small thing, even something as small as grabbing somebody else and telling them what you saw is doing something. By doing nothing, you are part of the problem. You are complicit.
That's the thing. No, but that's the thing is a lot of times it's like, well, I'm just choosing to stay out of it. By choosing to stay out of it, you are part of the problem.
Exactly. And you know what? The amount of times I mean, I'll give you an example. When I was a kid growing up in the 80s, kids did not go around shooting and stabbing each other. This is how we ended up. This is how I grew up with friends, because modern kids, they have an argument, stab each other, and they grow up wondering why they got no friends no more. Well, maybe that's not the case in the States. Here in the UK, that's definitely the case. But when I was a kid, we didn't. You'd have an argument, you'd have a fight about it. Both people would be very much alive, and the chances are you'd be friends afterwards, actually. But things are really different now. Yeah, you talk through it. You would try. There was more of a culture of trying to talk through things. Nowadays, we have this. Again, it's part of this TikTok thing. We have this instant gratification thing, and that even hinders us in problem resolution, because
because if we don't get the instant solution to our problem, we just throw in the towel or have a visceral
violent episode. Yeah, exactly. It takes a lot of patience to live life. I mean, as I said, you realize the levels of frustration I've experienced in my life. I mean, I'll give you an example. I was working for one of the biggest corporate law practices in the world. I got promoted from an email agent to being a product manager of their £9 million project in 6 months. Because that's just how I roll. And I'd have guys putting their feet up on my desk going, "Oh, JB, don't know how you got this job. You're just too cool," which is a euphemism in in British corporate world for being black. I would work 4 or 5 times harder and longer hours than all of my peers. I'd get less pay. I'd get treated like shit for it. I mean, I remember working for Harvey's Furniture, which is owned by the Steinhoff Group. And Steinhoff, the head of the biggest group, came to Purfleet in London to visit us. Bear in mind, I was the guy who was, thanks to my graphics and website work, was helping us to bring in millions every week at Harvey's Furniture. I even designed what was going to be the consumer's first virtual 3D shop for Harvey's Furniture. And you know how I get introduced? He shakes everybody else's hand and goes, Steinhoff doesn't even shake my hand. He just looks at me and goes, Oh, yeah. Even when I was in the army, I would get the same thing. So when you have that kind of experience, it becomes dehumanizing. And there are plenty of times where you think to yourself, fuck everybody else. Screw building tech.
But think in those moments, and this goes back to the opportunity everyone has, the impact it would have had on you if someone there had said something about it in that moment.
Oh yeah,
and said, that's not okay. It would not only would have potentially changed the way he approached things, would have changed your whole outlook on that situation. And again, I think that's where we have an opportunity to influence things for the better.
A lot of black guys, particularly working in this space, they become quite bitter, especially by my age.
Understandably so.
Because we get black men and particularly black women in tech get zero support of any kind. I mean, it's a constant battle for recognition, and it's a constant battle. I'll give you an example. I'm an actual alum of Y Combinator Startup School and Pioneer. And the great thing about Y Combinator is it teaches you very, very quickly. There are some absolute dumbasses out there who will get cash thrown at them for an idea that's literally just scribbled on the back of a napkin, basically. I mean, we only have to look at WeWork, one of the biggest investment debacles of the frickin' decade. But it's an example of what happens copiously. Did you know that post BLM and post Brexit, after all of these companies around the world claimed they were going to do better and fund everything, it actually turns out that investment in Black-owned, Black-operated startup companies has actually gone down to a record low, only 3% of all total world investment.
Really?
Yeah, 3%. total world investment into companies. This is, and it's nothing to do with some people. I've heard loads of people on LinkedIn go, well, people invest where the talent is, and the talent just isn't there. ADD what true. Now? Yeah, no. Yeah. It's just this more myopic bias nonsense. I mean, there's amazing technologists out there of all races. That's the reality. Amazing technologists.
Well, and I think that's one of the things I most appreciate about the show and doing this is the opportunity to connect with people who are doing incredible things and finding and discovering the fact that there's not a stereotype of this is the person that does this well. Yeah. It's like, nope. It's just not true. It is amazing. Some of the fascinating things, some of the most creative, innovative people I've encountered.
I mean, I would say I would actually say the stereotype thing, maybe I disagree a bit on, because up until now, the last few years, there has been a stereotype of the technologist.
There has.
Zuckerberg was the stereotype. Musk was the stereotype. Bezos was the stereotype. In fact, the stereotype was a very monochromatic stereotype that is held up as an image to inspire young innovators like myself. And this is also what brings me to the next point, which is why we should, just like we should care about our privacy, we really need to care about the people who are in control of these platforms. Because think of it like this.
Because it matters.
It does. If we're bringing up technologists and innovators to copy the top 4 people out there right now, oh my God, are we screwed? No, I jest you not. I mean, these guys are in charge of our AI. They're in charge of our auto-driving cars. They're in charge of our economies. We cannot afford any more narcissistic, greedy people to get this much power. Really, seriously, pump the brakes, people. It's going to be it's possibly even is too late already. Who knows? Because the reality is AI is the biggest thing to advance humanity since the wheel. It really is.
Yes,
it is also
for sure.
But AI is way more dangerous than any nuclear weapon. I mean, a nuclear weapon, when it's dropped on the ground, will have a half-life of 1,000 years. But the damage that could be done by a poorly trained AI making its way into mainstream consumer adoption could be something that has effects and repercussions for centuries, actually, to millions or billions of people. Bear in mind, there are people now who are not getting insurance because of a bias in the AI. There's there's biases in the AI that's selling.
No, the downstream effects of AI are massive, and I think that's where as we come into the home stretch here, I think it's an encouragement that everybody can play a role, and when you see those problems, you can lean in, and there is a lot more that you can do about it. And I think if anything, in some ways, that's what excites me and inspires me about AI, is that it's creating opportunity for some of those folks who maybe wouldn't have had the chance, because it can be an enabler for them to do things that they wouldn't have been able to do before, but now they can create something that can disrupt the big guys.
This is what I love about this. I mean, bear in mind, AI is we're getting to this position now where even if somebody could barely read properly, there is actually a high probability or a high chance they could get a product built actually using AI.
Yep.
That's incredible.
That's incredible.
That is
absolutely
insane.
Incredible.
We're talking about people who have been possibly quite ancestrally, and because their parents, these are people whose parents have never worked, who've never had a college education, and they're literally if the 21st century consumer capitalist Barnay's recipe was to continue, these people would die. But these are people who can actually change the trajectory,
turn around, change the trajectory of human history.
This is incredible. Now, if I were the government, I would be scared shitless of this. Let's not get it twisted.
And I think that's why you see so much of the stuff to try and create fear around this, because if you can keep people scared, there's.
Let's put it. Look at it like this. I'm launching a product which is literally the thing that Barack Obama feared. When he first came into office, he said he foresees a future where every person will be walking around and they will be their own bank. And that terrified him because of the lack of control it produced. Now, the motto for Vox Crypto is, I am the bank. The motto for Vox Messenger is, I am the messenger. Because with both of my applications, you are the center of your world. My products are there for you. I'm going to make profit, but the profit I'm going to make, because I don't want to be a billionaire, is going to get fed straight into social good and universal basic income, which by 2030 will be distributed to whoever is using Vox Messenger and Vox Pay. As I said, I have no wish to be a billionaire. I don't want to own loads of houses. I don't want to live on some plush little place with other Silicon Valleyites in their little closed community. Not feeling that.
Doesn't jive for you.
I'm not even going to get rid of my council house. I become a millionaire, I'm just going to buy my council house. I'm still going to live in this council house, in this slightly dopey part of Kingswood, in this slightly not so good part of Nuneaton, because actually I feel happy. I feel fine here. The people are nice. The people are real. I'll give you an example. At one point when I was living in London, I was earning 200 grand a year, and I was meeting some very bougie people. The white hair in my beard and my hair is from those times. I've never felt poorer than when I had that money and I had that position in society. I just do not.
Well, yeah. And I think there's plenty of stories out there where people think if they just get there, that will be what's satisfying. And then they get there and realize it wasn't all it was cracked up to be.
I mean, the one I love most is when you see, this is the thing, is that if you meet most of my peers in the tech space, they're all clean shaven. They have their hair done in the classic short back and sides, because that's what a black guy is meant to look like in the tech industry. He's got to, conform. And when I look at my peers who do that, they're not happy, and they're not getting very far actually, because the reality is when you play that role of a conformist, nobody respects you. Nobody's going to give you anything. And even if you do somehow make it to being a rich black guy in that infrastructure, you're still going to be treated like shit anyway, because you weren't meant to be there. The only difference being is you managed to somehow slip through because you got the money to now. People forget it's not really about race. It's about class. It's about where you come from. Racism is a lever of classism, but it doesn't, whichever way you cut it, there's always going to be, as long as we stick to this paradigm of everything has to be about profit and we're all willing to sell our souls for an easy life, that is always going to be the system that we have, a kind of Victorian hierarchy, We don't need it. We got the 21st century.
No, we don't.
We got AI, we have blockchain, we have for the first time in all of human history, the actual tools to make equality and parity an enforceable thing, true distribution of wealth.
It's an exciting time. And I think on that note, that's a good note to end on. So JB, I have appreciated getting to know you through this whole experience, and I appreciated you joining me just to talk things through. I love these kinds of conversations that if anybody listening to it knows, these are the kind of conversations I would have on my patio overlooking things, talking about the way the world works. So thank you for being here today and sharing your insights and wisdom. I love the disruption and just the overall attitude and approach you have towards things. I think we need more of it in the world. So thank you for making the time and being here.
Hey, no, thanks for having me. And you know what? I love these conversations as well, because everything in the world runs on vibrations. We know this. It's quantum mechanics. And even us having this conversation vibrationally, once it's put out there, it will have a ripple effect. And even if only one or two people took anything from it, you know what? That's still good.
That's one or two people. Exactly. I know
and they'll spread it on. They pass it on.
It'll continue forward. The ripple will carry. There you go. Well, JB, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for watching and listening, however you end up consuming it. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and we will see you on the other side.